XRP holders are asking one question right now, and the answer could completely change the way people look at this market forever. Is a $10,000 XRP actually possible, or is it just another dream created by hype and emotion? Some investors believe XRP is designed for something much bigger than most people understand, while others say those price targets make absolutely no sense mathematically. But what if the truth is somewhere in the middle? Because when you look at the global payment system, the banking partnerships, the growing utility, and the amount of money moving around the world every single day, you start to understand why this conversation is becoming impossible to ignore. Today, we are breaking down the real possibilities, the risks, the facts, and the future of XRP to see whether a $10,000 XRP could ever become reality. XRP has always been different from most cryptocurrencies because its main focus was never memes, hype, or internet trends. From the beginning, XRP was created to solve a very specific problem inside the financial system, and that problem is cross border payments. Right now, sending money between countries is still slow, expensive, and outdated. Banks often rely on systems that were created decades ago, and moving large amounts of money across the world can take days to settle. This is where XRP enters the conversation because Ripple designed XRP to act as a bridge asset that could move value almost instantly between different currencies. That idea alone is why so many investors believe XRP has a future bigger than most cryptocurrencies. When people hear the number $10,000 per XRP, the first reaction is usually shock because XRP currently trades at only a small fraction of that number. But XRP supporters argue that if the asset becomes deeply connected to the global financial system, then today's prices could eventually look extremely small compared to where the market may go in the future. One reason this belief continues growing is because global finance is enormous. Every day, trillions of dollars move between banks, governments, companies, and payment providers around the world. Some XRP investors believe that if even a small percentage of those transactions eventually use XRP for liquidity, demand could rise dramatically. This is why many people call XRP a utility asset instead of just a speculative cryptocurrency. They believe its value could eventually come from real world use rather than social media hype. Another major reason XRP remains important is Ripple's partnerships. Over the years, Ripple has worked with banks, payment companies, and financial institutions in different parts of the world. Even though not every partner uses XRP directly, the fact that major institutions are willing to work with Ripple gives investors confidence that the company is building serious infrastructure instead of chasing short term trends. The legal battle with the SEC also played a huge role in XRP's story. For years, uncertainty around regulation pushed many investors away from XRP because they feared the project could face major restrictions in the United States. But when Ripple achieved important legal victories, confidence started returning to the market. Many investors saw those developments as proof that XRP survived one of the toughest challenges in crypto history. Still, reaching $10,000 would require something extraordinary. The market capitalization at that level would be enormous, and critics argue it would exceed the value of many entire financial systems. That is why the debate around XRP is so intense, because believers think the current financial structure itself could change over time, while skeptics believe those expectations are disconnected from reality. What makes this topic fascinating is that both sides present strong arguments. XRP supporters point to utility speed, scalability, and global payments. Critics point to supply size, market cap concerns, and adoption uncertainty. But one thing is certain: XRP continues to remain one of the most discussed digital assets in the world because people understand that if global finance ever shifts toward blockchain technology in a major way, XRP could become one of the biggest beneficiaries. That possibility alone keeps investors watching closely because the future of XRP may depend less on crypto hype and more on whether traditional finance eventually accepts blockchain based settlement systems on a global scale. To understand whether XRP could ever reach $10,000, it is important to understand how price actually works in financial markets because many people look only at the number itself without thinking about what would need to happen behind the scenes. XRP has a very large supply compared to assets like Bitcoin, and this is one of the biggest reasons why critics say extremely high price predictions are unrealistic. Bitcoin has a maximum supply of only 21 million coins, while XRP has a supply measured in tens of billions. Because of this difference, XRP would need an enormous amount of capital flowing into the market to reach levels like $10,000 per coin. This is where market capitalization becomes part of the discussion. Market cap is calculated by multiplying the price of the asset by its circulating supply, and if XRP reached $10,000, the total valuation would become incredibly massive. However, XRP supporters argue that traditional market cap calculations may not fully apply if XRP becomes part of the global liquidity system. Their argument is based on utility rather than simple investment demand. They believe XRP could eventually be used repeatedly to settle massive transactions between institutions, meaning the same XRP could move value over and over again across the world. According to this theory, XRP would not need all global money stored inside it at once because the asset could act more like a bridge constantly moving liquidity. This idea is what separates XRP from many other cryptocurrencies because its supporters are not just talking about retail investors buying coins on exchanges. They are talking about banks, payment providers, governments, and corporations potentially using XRP technology for real settlement purposes. If that level of adoption ever happens, demand for liquidity could increase dramatically. Another factor people discuss is scarcity over time. XRP transactions burn a very tiny amount of XRP during each transfer. While the burned amount is extremely small, some investors believe that after many years of global use, the available supply could slowly decrease. Combined with growing adoption, they believe this could create stronger upward pressure on price in the long term. There is also a psychological side to XRP investing that cannot be ignored. XRP has one of the strongest communities in the crypto market. Even during difficult years, the XRP community remained active and continued believing in the project. That level of loyalty creates powerful momentum because many investors view XRP as a long term financial transformation rather than a short term trade. At the same time, emotions can also create unrealistic expectations. Social media often spreads extreme price predictions without explaining the economic reality behind them. Some influencers throw out massive numbers simply to attract attention and views, and this can create confusion for newer investors who do not fully understand how financial markets operate. That does not mean XRP cannot rise significantly in the future. Many analysts believe XRP could still experience major growth if crypto adoption continues expanding worldwide. If regulations become clearer, institutional participation grows, and Ripple continues increasing partnerships, XRP could benefit strongly from those developments. But reaching $10,000 would likely require a complete transformation of global finance itself. It would mean blockchain technology becoming deeply integrated into international settlement systems, central bank operations, and institutional liquidity management. In other words, XRP would not simply need crypto adoption, it would need financial system adoption on a massive scale. That is why this conversation continues attracting attention, because the future price of XRP depends on much bigger questions about technology, regulation, banking, and the future structure of money itself. One of the biggest reasons people continue believing in XRP's long term future is because the world's financial system is already changing faster than most people realize. Digital payments are growing everywhere, cash usage is declining in many countries, and governments are now exploring blockchain technology in ways that seemed impossible just a few years ago. This is important because XRP supporters believe the future financial system will need assets that can move money instantly across borders, and they see XRP as one of the strongest candidates for that role. Right now, international payments still involve multiple middlemen, delayed settlements, and high transaction fees. Large banks often keep money parked in different countries just to maintain liquidity for cross border transfers. This system is expensive and inefficient. Ripple's vision is to replace parts of that old structure with blockchain based settlement, where XRP acts as the bridge between currencies. Instead of waiting days for money to settle, transactions could potentially complete within seconds. This is why XRP investors often focus more on utility than hype, because they believe real adoption creates long term value. If financial institutions begin using XRP at scale, demand for liquidity could increase significantly. Even small improvements in the global payment industry represent billions of dollars in movement every single day. XRP supporters argue that capturing even a fraction of this market could transform the value of the asset over time. Another important factor is central bank digital currencies, also known as CBDCs. Around the world, governments are researching or testing digital versions of national currencies. Some XRP investors believe Ripple's technology could eventually help connect these digital currencies together. If different countries launch their own CBDCs, there will still be a need for systems that allow fast communication and settlement between them. This is one reason why Ripple continues staying involved in conversations around financial innovation and blockchain infrastructure. At the same time, competition in this space is becoming more intense. XRP is not the only project trying to improve global payments. Other blockchain networks, fintech companies, and even traditional financial institutions are building their own systems. Some governments may also prefer creating internal solutions rather than depending on public blockchain assets. This means XRP's future success is not guaranteed, even if the technology itself remains strong. Regulation will also play a massive role moving forward. For years, uncertainty around crypto regulation slowed institutional participation because many companies did not want legal risk. Ripple's legal fight with the SEC became one of the most important crypto cases in the industry because the outcome could influence how digital assets are treated in the United States. When Ripple achieved important wins in court, many XRP holders viewed it as a turning point for the project. Clear regulation could open the door for larger institutional involvement because banks and financial companies usually avoid uncertainty. If governments create rules that support blockchain innovation while providing legal clarity, XRP could benefit from increased trust and adoption. But if regulations become too restrictive, growth could slow significantly. Another reason people talk about extreme XRP price predictions is because of past crypto history itself. Bitcoin was once considered worthless, and very few people believed it could ever reach even $1,000. Over time, crypto markets repeatedly shocked investors with moves that once seemed impossible. XRP supporters often point to this history as proof that financial markets can change faster than expected. Still, there is a major difference between strong growth and unrealistic expectations. A $10,000 XRP would represent one of the biggest financial transformations in modern history. It would likely require widespread global usage, deep institutional integration, and major changes in how money moves across borders. That does not mean XRP cannot succeed without reaching those levels, because even smaller price increases from current levels could still create life changing returns for some investors. This is why experienced investors usually focus on probabilities instead of fantasies. They study adoption trends, partnerships, regulations, and market cycles instead of depending entirely on emotional price targets. The future of XRP may become very impressive, but the path forward will likely depend on patience, real world use cases, and continued development inside the financial industry. Another major reason the XRP community remains so confident is because many investors believe the current financial system cannot continue operating the same way forever. Around the world, debt levels are rising, banking systems are becoming more digital, and governments are searching for faster and more efficient ways to move money. Supporters of XRP believe this environment creates the perfect opportunity for blockchain technology to become deeply integrated into global finance over the next decade. One of the strongest arguments from XRP believers is speed and efficiency. Traditional international transfers can involve several banks, currency conversions, settlement delays, and expensive fees. XRP transactions settle within seconds and cost only a tiny fraction compared to older systems. To many investors, this is not just a small improvement. They see it as a complete modernization of financial infrastructure. This is why some XRP holders compare the current stage of blockchain technology to the early days of the internet. In the beginning, very few people understood how important the internet would eventually become. Most businesses ignored it because they believed traditional systems were already good enough. But over time, the internet transformed communication, shopping, entertainment, and global business completely. XRP supporters believe blockchain technology could eventually follow a similar path inside the financial world. Institutional interest also continues growing across the crypto industry. Large investment firms, banks, and payment companies are paying much closer attention to digital assets than they did a few years ago. Even governments that once criticized crypto are now exploring blockchain systems and digital currencies. This shift in attitude matters because institutional adoption usually brings larger amounts of capital and long term infrastructure development. Another important point is that XRP has survived multiple market cycles. Many cryptocurrencies disappeared after hype faded, but XRP remained one of the most recognized digital assets in the world. Even during difficult periods, the project continued expanding partnerships, improving technology, and maintaining one of the most active communities in crypto. For long term investors, survival itself becomes a sign of strength because the crypto market is extremely competitive. However, people also need to remain realistic. Markets do not move in straight lines, and emotions often create dangerous expectations. During bull markets, investors sometimes convince themselves that prices can rise forever, but corrections are a normal part of every financial market. XRP has experienced huge rallies in the past, but it has also gone through major crashes that shocked investors who expected nonstop growth. This is why risk management is extremely important. Many people enter crypto hoping to become rich quickly, but emotional investing often leads to poor decisions. Some investors buy after massive price increases because of fear of missing out, while others panic sell during market crashes. Successful investing usually requires patience, discipline, and realistic expectations instead of emotional reactions driven by social media hype. The conversation around a $10,000 XRP also reflects something deeper about human psychology. People are attracted to transformational opportunities because they dream about financial freedom and changing their lives completely. Crypto markets amplify those emotions because dramatic success stories already exist. Investors hear about early Bitcoin holders becoming millionaires, and naturally they wonder whether XRP could someday create a similar opportunity. At the same time, smart investors understand the difference between possibility and probability. Technically, many things are possible in financial markets, especially during periods of major technological change. But probability depends on adoption, regulation, utility, global economics, competition, and market behavior. XRP may experience major growth in the future without necessarily reaching extreme predictions like $10,000. What makes XRP unique is that the discussion is not only about retail investors buying coins for speculation. The entire argument centers around whether XRP can become part of the infrastructure behind international finance itself. If Ripple succeeds in expanding institutional use and blockchain settlement becomes more accepted globally, XRP could gain tremendous long term value from utility rather than hype alone. That is why XRP continues attracting so much attention because people are not simply investing in a cryptocurrency. Many believe they are investing in a possible future transformation of how money moves around the world. As the conversation around XRP continues growing, one thing becomes very clear. The future of this asset depends on much more than daily price charts or short term hype cycles. XRP sits at the center of one of the biggest financial debates of this generation. And that debate is whether blockchain technology will eventually become a core part of the global financial system. If that transformation happens on a massive scale, XRP could benefit in ways that most people still do not fully understand today. The idea of a $10,000 XRP sounds unbelievable to many investors because the numbers involved are enormous. Critics argue that the market capitalization required would be too large, while supporters believe utility and liquidity demand could completely change how value is measured in the future. Both sides continue presenting strong arguments, and the truth is that nobody knows exactly how the financial system will evolve over the next decade. What we do know is that the world is already moving toward digital finance faster than expected. Governments are exploring digital currencies, banks are investing in blockchain research, and payment systems are becoming increasingly global and technology driven. XRP was designed specifically for this environment, which is why many investors continue paying close attention to Ripple's progress, partnerships, and legal developments. Another important factor is timing. Financial revolutions do not happen overnight. Major infrastructure changes can take years or even decades before they become fully adopted across the world. Many people expect instant results from crypto investments, but real institutional transformation usually moves slowly because governments, banks, and financial systems are extremely large and heavily regulated. This means XRP investors who believe in long term adoption may need patience far beyond a normal market cycle. The crypto market itself will also continue influencing XRP's future. During strong bull markets, excitement and speculation often push prices far beyond what most people expect. During bearish periods, fear and negativity can create massive sell offs, even when long term fundamentals remain strong. Understanding these emotional cycles is important because markets are driven by both logic and psychology. One thing that separates experienced investors from emotional traders is the ability to focus on long term trends instead of daily noise. Successful investors usually study utility, adoption, regulation, and technological growth rather than chasing every short term headline. In XRP's case, the biggest questions are not about tomorrow or next week. They are about whether blockchain settlement becomes widely accepted inside international finance over the coming years. Even if XRP never reaches $10,000, that does not automatically mean the project failed. Many investors believe XRP could still experience major growth from current levels if adoption continues increasing worldwide. Others simply see XRP as part of a larger shift toward digital assets and decentralized financial systems. Every investor enters the market with different expectations, risk tolerance, and goals. The most important thing is staying informed and thinking critically. Social media can sometimes create unrealistic expectations because extreme predictions attract attention very quickly. Smart investors always research deeply before making financial decisions. They understand both the opportunities and the risks instead of blindly following hype from influencers or online communities. At the end of the day, XRP remains one of the most talked about assets in crypto because it represents something much bigger than speculation alone. It represents the possibility that global finance itself could eventually operate differently than it does today. Whether XRP becomes a major part of that future remains uncertain, but the conversation continues growing because the potential impact could be enormous if adoption reaches the level supporters expect. As always, remember that this video is only for educational and entertainment purposes and should not be considered financial advice. Cryptocurrency investing carries serious risk, and prices can move very quickly in both directions. Always do your own research before investing any money into the market. Never invest more than you can afford to lose, and make decisions based on your own understanding and financial situation. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest XRP updates and market analysis.